Welcome to the Word on Wednesday. This is your midweek online Bible study and devotion at Macville Christian Church. Today's Wednesday, January 21st, 2026, and I'm so thankful that you have seen fit to join us on this cold and snowy Wednesday. If these videos are a blessing to you, or if they're a challenge to you, be sure and let us know in the comments section on our Facebook page or on the YouTube channel. And always remember to share these. Share these videos. They're a great way of sharing the gospel with people and to share about what's going on in the life at Macville Christian Church. But most of all, it's important to get the word out about Jesus Christ. And that's why we have these Word on Wednesday videos. I'm so thankful that I'm able to work with you at Macville Christian Church, because I truly believe that we can do great things at Macville. I really believe, but we've got to let God work. And I believe that ever since I came to Macville in 2022. And I still believe that. And I trust that you're engaging in the extreme prayer series that I've been preaching on Sunday mornings. And if you've missed any of those messages, you can go back to this YouTube page, this YouTube channel, or check our Macville Facebook page. They're all linked there. You can go back and check on those. You know, at the start of this year, though, in addition to preaching about extreme prayer, I began a Word on Wednesday journey, a little bit different than we've done here. I began this Word on Wednesday journey looking at some of the personalities in the Old Testament. Yes, they were heroes of the faith, but there were times in their lives when they were certainly not heroes. And that's because they're human beings, just like you and I are. Some of these people push the envelope at times. Well, let's just call it what it is. They fail to follow God's teaching, and that's sin. They all failed, just like we do. And today I'm going to look at an episode in the life of Abram that reminds us again that we are all people who sin, who are subject to the corruption that sin gives in our lives. Last week I introduced you to Abram in Genesis chapter 12. God spoke to Abram and called him to leave his father's house, to take his family with him, go to a new land, but God promised Abram that through him all nations of the earth would be blessed. So Abram took his wife Sarah and left. Abram was 75 years old at the time, and she was 65. But because Abram believed God's promises, he's often called the father of our faith. Of course, his name was later changed to Abraham. But one of the first recorded incidents in the life of Abram is one of failure. That's one thing we have to remember here. In Genesis chapter 12, starting in verse 10, and if you read through verse 20, you see that Abram failed. Read along with me. Now there was a famine in the land. So Abram went down to Egypt to sojourn there, for the famine was severe in the land. When he was about to enter Egypt, he said to Sarai, his wife, I know that you are a woman beautiful in appearance. And when the Egyptians see you, they will say, this is his wife. Then they will kill me, but they will let you live. Say that you are my sister, that it may go well with me because of you, and that my life may be spared for your sake. When Abram entered Egypt, the Egyptians saw that the woman was very beautiful. And when the princes of Pharaoh saw her, they praised her to Pharaoh. And the woman was taken into Pharaoh's house. And for her sake he dealt well with Abram. And he had sheep, oxen, male donkeys, male servants, female donkeys, and camels. But the Lord afflicted Pharaoh and his house with great plagues because of Sarai, Abram's wife. So Pharaoh called Abram and said, "What is this you have done to me? Why did you not tell me she was your wife? Why did you say she is my sister, so that I took her for my wife? Now then, here is your wife. Take her and go." And Pharaoh gave men orders concerning him, and they sent him away with his wife and all that he had. You know, this instance speaks to us today. Because you see, what Abram did was he spoke a half-truth, but he passed it off as the whole truth and nothing but the truth. See, Abram had settled in the land of Canaan, but soon after a famine caused him to go to Egypt for food. So he took his wife with him, but when he got there, he tried to pull a fast one. He knew that his wife was beautiful and that some of the Egyptians would tell Pharaoh about her. Now, Sarah was 65 years old at that time. But remember, that doesn't mean she was really old as we would consider today, because people at that time lived a lot longer. My guess is that they just didn't age as quickly as today, because you remember, Sarah was 127 years old when she died. Abram lived to be 175. But anyway, when he went to Egypt, Abram believed he could deceive Pharaoh, which would make it better for everyone, especially himself. He told Sarah to say that she wasn't his wife, but his sister. Now, that was something that was half true. Because in Genesis chapter 20 and verse 12, after Abram repeated this sin later, we read him saying about Sarah, "Besides, she is indeed my sister, the daughter of my father, though not the daughter of my mother, and she became my wife." So technically, Abram was telling a little bit of truth, because Sarah was his half-sister. And it was much later in Leviticus chapter 18 when the Israelites were wandering in the desert, heading for the Promised Land, that marriage to close relatives was forbidden. But if you look at what Abram did, what was his intent? It was obviously to deceive. Sarah was his wife, and he didn't want the Egyptians to know that. And the reason, he said, was that it may go well with me because of you, and that my life may be spared for your sake. Now, some people would say, well, he had good intentions. You know, they'll say, well, the end justifies the means. But God calls on his people to be different. He delivers a powerful message. Here in Genesis chapter 12, he gave a powerful lesson to Abram. At first, all was well. Pharaoh brought Sarah into his house to be his wife, and he gave Abram, who he thought to be Sarah's brother, gave him sheep, gave him oxen, donkeys, male servants, female donkeys, and camels, according to Genesis chapter 12. So Abram was doing well financially. He was doing very well. But under this setup he had concocted by telling the Egyptians that she was his sister, there was something that still wasn't right. Apparently he hadn't thought of his wife or thought about anybody else. But because if you look at verse 17, we read, "But the Lord afflicted Pharaoh and his house with great plagues because of Sarah, Abram's wife." Well, we aren't told how Pharaoh knew that those plagues were because of Sarah, but we can assume that they were really bad. And if you go back and read that passage again, Genesis 12, 10 through 20, if you read it again, you'll find out that He says, I want you to leave. He told Abram, leave, get out of here, and take your wife and take all that you have. Now, we know that eventually Abram repented. We're told throughout the Bible that he's a great example of faith. But here he failed. Let's remember several things. One is we are called to a very high standard of living. God hates sin even when we think that end justifies the mean. God calls us to be holy, which means set apart. We're to be different from the world. But also, let's resolve to be different and glorify God by living as He wants. But also remember, this is so important, that when you fail, God forgives. Go to Him and ask His forgiveness. But also let us be a forgiving people and forgive those who sin against us as well. Folks, this is a very powerful message from the life of Abraham. I pray that you will glorify God in all, that you ask God for forgiveness when you fail, but you'll also be one who forgives others. Folks, I love you very much, and I hope to see you Sunday at Macville Christian Church. Now, be aware that the weather forecast for this weekend is potentially very rough. So you might want to check back on our Facebook page. We'll keep you informed of any developments that are weather-related, but we'll make sure that you're informed, and I'll also make sure that we have, if you're not able to get out, we'll have the message up early for you Sunday so that you can worship at your normal time. Folks, I love you very much, and take care.